Never go to that ranch, James. Promise me. My wife Carmen had always called it worthless desert land. After her sudden death, the lawyer handed me keys and said the Texas property was now mine. Since Carmen always claimed it was valueless desert, I planned to sell immediately. But curiosity made me drive out for one look before calling a realtor. The moment I unlocked that front door, I went numb with shock. The worthless land was a $50 million oil operation. But Carmen hadn't just left me a fortune. She'd left me something else hidden deep in an underground bunker that would reveal far more family secrets than I ever imagined. If you think you know what family secrets I found behind that locked door, drop a comment below and tell me where you're tuning in from. I sat in Mr. Sterling's wood-paneled office 3 weeks after burying my wife, staring at the mahogany desk between us. The lawyer's office smelled of leather and coffee, but all I could think about was Carmen's roses dying in our backyard because I kept forgetting to water them. In 32 years of marriage, Carmen Rodriguez had been my anchor. She'd never been demanding, but about one thing she'd been absolutely firm. I was never to visit her family's old land in West Texas. "Just empty desert, my love," she'd say. Nothing but dust and bad memories. I'd respected her wishes even when curiosity gnawed at me. That was our way. I trusted Carmen completely. But Carmen was gone now, taken by a stroke on a Tuesday morning while watering those roses she loved. The funeral had been a blur of casseroles and condolences of my 3 children, Adrian, Diego, and Catalina, flying in from Houston, Denver, and Austin just long enough to see their mother buried in San Fernando Cemetery. Then they scattered back to their busy lives, leaving me alone with silence that felt like drowning. "Mr. Rodriguez." Sterling's voice was gentle. He was thin with silver hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "I know this is difficult, but there are final matters regarding your wife's estate." Everything felt difficult these days. Getting out of bed, making coffee for one breathing without Carmen, all harder than my 2 tours in Afghanistan. Sterling slid a small wooden box across his desk. Inside lay an antique brass key attached to a longhorn keychain and a sealed envelope with my name in Carmen's precise handwriting. The same script she'd used for grocery lists and birthday cards for 3 decades. "What is this?" I asked, my voice rough. "Your wife purchased property in West Texas 3 years ago," Sterling said carefully. "According to her instructions, you were only to be informed after her passing. The deed has been transferred to your name, along with all mineral rights." The room tilted. Property Carmen never mentioned buying anything. Sterling consulted his notes. 2,500 acres in Reeves County near Pecos. It's called the Esperanza Ranch. He paused. "Mr. Rodriguez, based on recent geological surveys and current oil market conditions, we estimate the total value at approximately $50 million. The words hit like a physical blow. $50 million. Carmen, who'd clipped coupons religiously and bought generic cereal, who'd insisted we didn't need a new truck when mine hit 200,000 miles, had been sitting on a fortune without saying a word. My hands trembled as I lifted the brass key. The longhorn keychain caught the afternoon light, and I could hear Carmen's voice. "Promise me, James, never go to that ranch." But Carmen was gone, and her secrets were calling from across the Texas desert. For 32 years I'd honored her wishes about that land. For 32 years I'd trusted her judgment without question. Now holding the key to a $50 million mystery, I realized I'd never really known my wife at all. The woman who'd shared my bed, raised my children, and held my hand through every crisis had been keeping secrets that could change everything. I thought about our modest house on the south side, about the overtime shifts I'd worked to pay for the kids' college, about all the times Carmen had worried over bills while sitting on a fortune. Why had she hidden this from me? What else didn't I know? That night, I made a decision that would change everything. Tomorrow I would drive to West Texas and see what Carmen had been hiding from me for 32 years. The desert highway stretched endlessly before me, 4 hours of empty road giving me too much time to think. I'd left San Antonio before dawn, Carmen's words echoing in my memory. "Nothing but worthless desert land, my love. Just dust and memories." But if that were true, why had Sterling's surveys shown $50 million in oil deposits? The landscape around Pecos was harsh and unforgiving. Endless scrub brush and rocky outcroppings under a merciless sun. This was oil country where fortunes were made on geological gambles and families feuded over mineral rights. When I turned onto the dirt road marked Esperanza Ranch, my breath caught. This wasn't the abandoned wasteland I'd expected. A pristine gravel drive wound between maintained fence posts toward buildings that looked like a magazine spread about luxury ranches. The main house was stunning, native stone and weathered timber with a wraparound porch and large windows catching morning light. Beyond it stood a restored barn outbuildings, and in the distance oil derricks pumping steadily against the blue sky. A weathered man in his 60s emerged from the barn, wiping his hands on a rag. "You must be Mr. Rodriguez," he said, extending a calloused hand. "I'm Wade Thompson. Been managing this place for your wife for 3 years?" "3 years," I repeated, still processing what I was seeing. "Wade, I had no idea any of this existed until yesterday." His face softened. "Mrs. Rodriguez was specific about that. Said you weren't to know until after she passed." He gestured toward the house. "She spent every penny fixing this place up, turning it from a wreck into something special." As Wade led me through the property, Carmen's secret project became clear. She'd restored everything. Buildings operations even brought the oil wells online with a company from Midland. The house was furnished with her impeccable taste, comfortable leather furniture and family photos I'd never seen. The oil discovery was pure luck, Wade explained as we stood looking out over the derricks. Mrs. Rodriguez bought this because it was her grandmother's homestead. The petroleum company approached her about mineral rights 2 years ago. Turned out to be one of the richest deposits in West Texas. Carmen had grown up poor daughter of migrant workers who'd scraped together enough to buy this land in the 1940s. Her family lost it during the oil bust of the 1980s, and somehow my wife had quietly bought it back. "Why didn't she tell me?" I asked. "Can't say for sure," Wade replied carefully. "But Mrs. Rodriguez talked about wanting to surprise you, having something special for the family. She was always planning, always thinking 3 steps ahead." I was still processing this when my phone rang. Adrian's name flashed on the screen, and something cold settled in my stomach. My eldest son never called unless he wanted something. "Dad," his voice was sharp businesslike. "We need to talk. Diego and I know about the ranch. We're flying in tomorrow, and we expect a full explanation." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, wondering how my sons had learned about Esperanza Ranch so quickly, and why their first instinct was confrontation rather than conversation. Wade watched me with an expression suggesting he'd dealt with difficult family situations before. "Your boys?" I nodded, already dreading tomorrow. Carmen had kept this place secret for 3 years, but somehow less than 24 hours after I'd learned about it myself, my sons were making demands. The Texas sun beat down mercilessly as I stood on my wife's secret ranch, holding the key to a $50 million mystery, and facing the reality that my children saw dollar signs where I saw Carmen's final gift. They descended on the ranch like vultures arriving in a black rental SUV that kicked up dust clouds. My sons, who hadn't visited once since their mother's funeral, had coordinated overnight flights from Houston and Denver. Adrian stepped out first, his expensive suit absurd against the Texas landscape. At 32, he'd inherited Carmen's intelligence, but none of her warmth. Diego followed, 29 and soft from too many business lunches. Both carried themselves with entitled swagger. Catalina arrived separately, in her Honda Civic, from Austin. At 26, she still had Carmen's gentle eyes, though today they were clouded with confusion. She'd always been our peacemaker. Dad. Adrian's greeting was curt. He'd brought his own lawyer, a thin man who looked uncomfortable. "We need to discuss this situation." "What situation?" I asked. "Don't play dumb," Diego interjected. $50 million, Dad. Mom sat on $50 million and never told us. Wade emerged from the barn, saw the family gathering, and quietly retreated. "Your mother had her reasons," I said carefully. "Her reasons for what? For making you sole beneficiary, while cutting her children out?" Adrian's laugh was cold. "For hiding the biggest windfall this family's ever seen?" "She didn't cut anyone out. This was her family's land. Money that should have secured our futures," Diego interrupted. "Paid off loans, helped with houses, funded college accounts." "What college accounts?" "None of you have children. You're too busy with careers to think about family." Catalina flinched like I'd slapped her. "That's not fair, Papa," she said quietly. "We're trying to understand why Mom kept this secret from all of us." Adrian sensed his opening. "Exactly, Cat. Think logically. Dad had to know. Married couples don't hide $50 million purchases. He's been playing us, acting like the grieving widower while sitting on a fortune." "That's not true," I protested. "Then explain it," Diego pressed. "Explain how Mom bought 2,500 acres without you knowing. How she managed renovations, hired staff, coordinated with oil companies, all while keeping you in the dark. I couldn't explain it because I didn't understand it myself. Carmen had been meticulous about finances, discussing every major expense. The idea she'd orchestrated this without my knowledge seemed impossible. Maybe they're right, Papa, Catalina said softly. Maybe you did know about this place. Maybe you're trying to figure out how to keep it all for yourself. Her words hit harder than any physical blow. My daughter, who'd once crawled into my lap during thunderstorms, was looking at me like a stranger, like I was the kind of man who'd lie to his children about their mother's legacy. Cat. I started, but she was already turning away, walking toward her brothers with defeated posture. Adrian's satisfied smile told me everything. This wasn't about understanding Carmen's choices or honoring her memory. This was about money, pure and simple, and my sons had just turned my daughter into their weapon against me. The desert wind howled across the ranch as I watched my family splinter into pieces, each of us standing on different sides of a chasm that $50 million had carved between us. Wade found me sitting in Carmen's office at midnight, staring at her desk as if it might reveal the secrets my wife had taken to her grave. The house felt impossibly quiet. After the day's confrontation, every sound amplified by my children's accusations. "Can't sleep either," Wade asked, settling into the leather chair across from me. "Mrs. Rodriguez used to sit right there when she was working late, always planning something. Planning what and why keep me in the dark." Wade studied me, then walked to the bookshelf behind Carmen's desk. His fingers traced along leather spines until he found a slim volume of Emily Dickinson poems Carmen had treasured since college. "She told me if you ever seemed lost, really lost, I should show you this." He pulled the book forward, and I heard a soft click. A section of bookshelf swung inward, revealing a narrow staircase leading into darkness. "Jesus Christ," I breathed. "Mrs. Rodriguez had this built during renovations," Wade explained, flicking on lights that illuminated a spacious room below. "Said every ranch house needed a storm cellar, but this was something else." The hidden room looked like something from a spy movie. Multiple monitors lined one wall, connected to sophisticated computer systems. Filing cabinets stood along another wall, and in the center sat a leather chair facing the largest screen. But what caught my attention were hundreds of video files displayed on the monitor. Day 1 for James, when he's ready. Day 30, about the boys. Day 100, the truth about the money. 365 files total, one for every day following Carmen's death. "She made videos," I whispered. "Started recording 6 months before she passed," Wade said. "Spent hours down here talking to that camera like you were sitting right there." With trembling hands, I clicked the first file. The screen filled with Carmen's face, not the tired version from her final months, but the vibrant woman I'd fallen in love with. Her dark hair was pulled back in the simple ponytail she'd worn, gardening eyes, holding that spark of mischief that had first captured my heart. "Hello, my love," she said, her voice clear as if she were beside me. "If you're watching this, then I'm gone and you found the ranch despite my warnings." Tears blurred my vision as she continued. "I know you're confused, probably angry, wondering why I kept this from you. The truth is, James, I bought back my grandmother's land because I discovered something about our sons that broke my heart. Something I couldn't tell you while alive because I needed to protect our family first." Carmen's expression grew serious. "Adrian has been laundering money for a cartel operation out of Houston for 2 years. Diego has been running a Ponzi scheme through his energy consulting business, stealing from investors' retirement funds. I have evidence of everything, James. Bank records, recorded conversations, documentation that could send both boys to federal prison for decades." My world tilted. My sons, successful, educated men I'd raised to value honesty, were criminals. I bought this ranch with money from my grandmother's jewelry pieces I'd kept hidden since she died. I wanted to create something clean for our family, something built on love instead of lies. But I knew someday our sons' crimes would catch up with them, and we'd need leverage to protect Catalina and ourselves. Carmen leaned closer to the camera, her voice dropping to the intimate tone she'd used during our most private conversations. "There's one more secret about Diego that will break your heart, my love. But first, you need to see all the evidence I've gathered." Following Carmen's video instructions, Wade led me to the old barn, our flashlights cutting through darkness. The structure looked weathered and abandoned, but Wade's confident stride suggested otherwise. "Mrs. Rodriguez was clever," he said, pulling aside a loose board near the back wall. "Anyone snooping would see nothing but an old barn. The hidden panel revealed a steel door with an electronic keypad. Wade punched in Carmen's birthday and the lock clicked open. Beyond lay concrete stairs descending into what could only be described as a professional bunker. She had this built during renovations, Wade explained as fluorescent lights flickered on. Told contractors it was a tornado shelter, but she installed power ventilation and internet that would make the FBI jealous. The underground room was larger than Carmen's office with industrial shelving and sophisticated computers. But what dominated the space was a massive evidence board covering one wall. Photographs, documents, timeline charts, and red string connecting elements like a detective show. How long was she working on this, I asked. 3 years. Started right after she bought the ranch. Said she'd stumbled onto something that made her sick about the boys. The evidence was meticulously organized. Adrian's section showed bank records from accounts I'd never heard of, photographs of him meeting known criminals, and transcripts of recorded conversations discussing money transfers and cleaning operations. Millions of dollars flowing through shell companies and offshore accounts. Diego's section was equally damning. Investment statements showing fabricated returns, client lists of elderly retirees who'd trusted him with life savings, and spreadsheets tracking how he'd robbed Peter to pay Paul while skimming massive fees. The Ponzi scheme had been running 18 months and was collapsing. She recorded phone calls, I asked, examining a transcript. Had help from a private investigator out of Dallas, Wade said. Former FBI guy who specialized in white-collar crime. Carmen paid him to document everything legally. As I continued examining evidence, a medical file caught my attention. Diego's name was on the tab along with records from Houston hospitals and specialists. The diagnosis was clear chronic kidney disease, stage 4, progressing rapidly toward complete renal failure. He's dying, I whispered. Mrs. Rodriguez found out 6 months ago. Wade confirmed. Diego had been hiding it, probably didn't want to appear weak to investors. But Carmen knew the signs from when her father went through it. The medical reports painted a grim picture. Diego would need a transplant within the year, possibly sooner. Best matches typically came from immediate family. Carmen had been tested and found compatible, but she'd never told anyone. She was going to save him, I realized, even knowing what he'd done. Wade nodded. That's who she was. But then the stroke took her, and now I stared at the medical files, understanding dawning. Diego's crimes weren't just greed. They were desperation. A dying man trying to secure money for his family before his body failed. It didn't excuse what he'd done, but it explained the urgency. The meeting was set for Monday morning. Adrian and Diego arrived with their lawyers, confident they would walk away with millions. They'd convinced Catalina to drive up from Austin again, her presence clearly intended as emotional leverage against me. I sat at the head of the conference table in the ranch's dining room, which Wade had transformed into a professional meeting space. Across from me, representatives from Lone Star Energy waited with contracts and geological surveys spread before them. Dad, Adrian began, his voice condescending. Our proposal is simple. A 3-way split of all assets with professional management for maximum returns. Diego nodded, pulling out financial projections. I've run the numbers. We're looking at generational wealth, trust funds, debt payoffs, maybe a family foundation in Mom's name. The irony of Diego discussing trust funds while running a Ponzi scheme wasn't lost on me, but I kept my expression neutral. That sounds reasonable, I said calmly. But before we decide, I think our partners should know exactly who they'd be working with. I slid a thick manila folder to Tom Brennan, Lone Star's regional director. Financial records for both my sons going back 3 years. Thought you might want to review them before any long-term agreements. Adrian's smile faltered as Brennan opened the folder. Bank statements, transaction records, recorded conversations. Everything Carmen had documented about their crimes. What the hell is this? Adrian demanded. Evidence, I replied. Evidence that my eldest son has been laundering money for a Mexican cartel using his law practice as a front. And evidence that Diego has been operating a Ponzi scheme defrauding elderly investors. The room fell silent except for pages turning. Brennan's expression grew increasingly grim. These are serious allegations, Diego said, voice shaking. Dad, you can't believe... I believe what the evidence shows... I interrupted. Phone records, bank transfers, witness statements. Your mother spent 3 years building an airtight case. Catalina stared at her brothers in shock. Is this true, Adrian, Diego? Their silence was more damning than any confession. Brennan closed the folder and stood. Mr. Rodriguez, Lone Star Energy cannot continue our partnership under these circumstances. We're terminating all contracts pending legal review. He gathered his materials and headed for the door. Wait, Diego called. You can't just... We don't do business with criminals, Brennan replied without turning. As the oil executives departed, Adrian turned on me with fury. You son of a bitch. You've destroyed us. Do you know what you've done? I've protected this family's reputation, I said. Something you should have considered before becoming criminals. Catalina was crying, the weight of her brother's betrayal sinking in. How could you lie to all of us? But Diego wasn't listening. His face had gone ashen, and he was clutching his side, breathing in short, painful gasps. Diego, I said, anger immediately replaced by concern. He tried to stand, took one step, and collapsed. As the oil executives walked away and Adrian screamed about lawsuits, Diego clutched his side and fell to the floor. Call 911, I shouted, my anger instantly replaced by fear. The ambulance ride to San Antonio felt like the longest hour of my life, watching Diego's face grow paler with each passing mile. The paramedics worked efficiently monitoring his vitals while radioing ahead to University Hospital, but I could see the concern in their eyes as his blood pressure continued dropping. Adrian rode in his own car behind us, his earlier fury replaced by the kind of fear that only comes when you realize money means nothing if you lose the people you love. Catalina had insisted on riding with me in the ambulance, holding Diego's hand and whispering prayers in Spanish, something she hadn't done since childhood. His kidneys are shutting down, one of the paramedics explained as we pulled into the hospital's emergency bay. We need to get him into dialysis immediately. The next few hours blurred together in a haze of medical terminology and waiting room coffee. Dr. Sarah Brennan, the hospital's chief nephrologist, emerged from Diego's room with the kind of expression that meant serious conversations were ahead. Mr. Rodriguez, she said, pulling me aside, your son is in end-stage renal failure. Without immediate intervention, we're looking at weeks, not months. What kind of intervention? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. Kidney transplant. Diego's been managing this condition for months, probably longer, but the stress of today's events pushed his system over the edge. We need to find a compatible donor as soon as possible. Adrian appeared at my shoulder, having caught the tail end of the conversation. What are his chances? With a good match from a family member, excellent. The surgery is routine, and recovery time is typically 6 to 8 weeks for both donor and recipient. Dr. Brennan explained the testing process as nurses drew blood from Adrian, Catalina, and me. The compatibility screening would take several hours, but family members had the best odds of being suitable donors. I should have seen this coming. I said more to myself than anyone else. Carmen knew. She'd been tested and found compatible, but she never told him. Mom knew Diego was sick, Catalina asked, her voice small. She knew everything, I replied. About the kidney disease, about the crimes, about the desperation that drove both your brothers to make terrible choices. For the first time since the confrontation at the ranch, Adrian looked genuinely ashamed. Dad, I never meant for things to go this far. The money, the schemes, it started small, just a way to help Diego pay for treatments he couldn't afford. And then it became about more than medical bills, I said. Yeah, he admitted. It became about proving we were successful, about living up to some image we thought we needed to maintain. Mom would be ashamed of what we became. Catalina reached across the waiting room chairs to take her brother's hand. She would be proud that you're here now that you're trying to save Diego. As we sat in the sterile hospital waiting room, something shifted in our family dynamic. The anger and accusations that had defined our relationships since Carmen's death began giving way to the kind of love that had always existed underneath. Complicated, sometimes painful, but unbreakable. I'm sorry, Papa, Catalina said quietly. I should have trusted you. I should have known you'd never hide anything important from us. You were protecting your brothers, I replied. That's what family does. Dr. Brennan returned as the sun was setting outside the hospital windows, carrying a manila folder with our test results. But instead of the relief I'd expected to see in her expression, there was confusion, maybe even concern. Mr. Rodriguez, we have the test results. There's something unusual we need to discuss. In the quiet consultation room, Dr. Brennan spread the lab results across the table, her expression troubled. The fluorescent lights hummed as she arranged papers with careful precision. Mr. Rodriguez, she began gently, the compatibility testing revealed something unexpected. You're not a match for Diego, but the blood work showed genetic markers that prompted additional tests. She slid a DNA analysis toward me. The technical language was dense, but the conclusion was clear. Probability of paternal relationship, 0.0%. I don't understand, I said, though part of me already did. Diego is not your biological son, Dr. Brennan said softly. The genetic markers indicate no familial relationship. I'm sorry. I know this is shocking. 29 years of fatherhood flashed before my eyes. Teaching Diego to ride a bike, helping with homework, celebrating his successes. All built on a foundation I'd never questioned. There has to be a mistake, I whispered. We ran the test twice to be certain, she replied. I'm truly sorry. The drive back to the ranch passed in a blur. Wade guided me to Carmen's secret room without a word. With trembling hands, I clicked on the video labeled Final Message about Diego. Carmen's face filled the screen, looking tired, older, as if her secrets had finally become too heavy. My darling James. She began, if you're watching this, then you know the truth about Diego. I can only imagine your pain right now, and I'm so sorry for what I did to our family. Tears blurred my vision as she continued. When you were deployed in Afghanistan for your second tour, I was lonely, scared, and made the biggest mistake of my life. I had an affair with Jeff Collins, a man I met at the base support group. It only lasted a few weeks, but Diego was conceived during that time. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. My wife, my Carmen, had betrayed me while I was serving our country. I wanted to tell you when you came home, but when I saw you hold Diego for the first time, saw the love in your eyes, I couldn't destroy that. You became his father in every way that mattered, James. You raised him, loved him, shaped him into the man he became. Carmen's voice broke with emotion. I kept Jeff's contact information all these years through a private investigator. He moved to El Paso, became a construction foreman, married, had other children. He never knew about Diego, but when I learned about the kidney disease, I had him tested secretly. He's a match, James. Her voice dropped to a whisper. The ranch, the oil money. It was my way of trying to make amends for the lie I've lived for 29 years. I wanted to give you something valuable, something that would secure your future, because I knew someday the truth would come out, and you might never forgive me. Carmen leaned closer to the camera, tears streaming down her face. Jeff Collins lives in El Paso. He's a good man who made a mistake with a married woman 30 years ago. The private investigator's contact is in the blue folder. Jeff doesn't know about Diego, but I believe, I pray, that he'll want to help save the son he never knew he had. The screen went dark, leaving me with a truth that had shattered everything I thought I knew about my marriage, my family, and my life. Through my tears, I heard Carmen's final words, I'm sorry, James. I'm so sorry. 2 weeks later, I sat in a coffee shop in El Paso across from a man who had Diego's eyes. Jeff Collins was 54, with graying temples and weathered hands of someone who'd spent decades in construction. I never knew, he said quietly. Carmen never told me she was pregnant. If I'd known, I would have tried to help. She was protecting everyone, I replied. Carmen always thought 3 steps ahead. Jeff showed me pictures of his wife and 2 teenage daughters. I've been married to Linda for 22 years. My girls don't know about what happened with Carmen. But when you told me about Diego needing a kidney, I knew I had to help. The compatibility testing at El Paso General took 3 days. Jeff was a perfect match. While waiting for surgical scheduling, I got to know Diego's biological father. Decent, hardworking, the kind of man who coached Little League and helped elderly neighbors. I want to meet him before the surgery, Jeff said. I need him to know I'm not trying to replace you as his father. The meeting took place at the ranch. Diego, still weak, but determined, sat with Adrian and Catalina on the porch, a united front I hadn't seen since childhood. You have your mother's stubborn streak, Jeff said with a sad smile, and apparently my kidney's tendency to quit working. Diego laughed despite everything. Lucky me on both counts. Giving you a kidney isn't about claiming you, Jeff continued. James Rodriguez raised you, loved you, shaped you. I'm just grateful I can help. After Jeff left to prepare for surgery, my children asked to speak with me privately. We sat in Carmen's old office, the weight of recent revelations heavy between us. Adrian spoke first, his voice breaking. Dad, I'm so sorry. For the crimes, for turning Catalina against you, for questioning your integrity, when you've been nothing but honest your whole life. I'm sorry too, Papa, Catalina whispered. I should have trusted you. Should have known you'd never hide anything important from us. Diego, despite his weakness, leaned forward. You had every right to walk away from me when you learned I wasn't your biological son. Instead, you're helping save my life. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm begging for it anyway. I looked at my 3 children. broken, ashamed, but finally honest, and felt Carmen's presence in the room. "You're my children," I said simply. "Not because of blood, but because of choice. Because of love. That doesn't change because you made mistakes." "Even after everything we did?" Adrian asked. "Especially after everything you did. That's what real fathers do. We love you through the worst of yourselves and help you become better." The surgery was scheduled for the following month. Adrian began cooperating with investigators working to return stolen funds. Diego reached out to his victims trying to make amends. Catalina took leave from teaching to coordinate everything. "Carmen would be proud," I told Catalina one evening as we watched the oil derricks pump in the distance. "She would be proud of you most of all," she replied, "for choosing forgiveness over anger." The night before Diego's surgery, I sat in Carmen's secret room one final time. Her image filled the screen, beautiful and hopeful. "I know you're angry with me, James," she said, "but I hope you'll understand that everything I did was about love. Complicated, imperfect human love." As I headed upstairs, I realized she was right. Carmen had been right all along. Family isn't about blood. It's about the people who choose to love you, protect you, and never give up on you. Even from beyond the grave, she was still teaching us what really mattered. The oil derricks continued their rhythm outside, pumping wealth from the earth Carmen had reclaimed. But her real treasure wasn't measured in dollars. It was the lesson that love, forgiveness, and second chances could heal even the deepest wounds. Looking back on everything that happened after Carmen's death, I realized how close I came to losing my family forever. The secrets, the lies, the money, they nearly destroyed us all. But sometimes God has a way of using our darkest moments to teach us the most important lessons. Don't be like me, friends. Don't let pride and anger blind you to what really matters. When I discovered my son's crimes, my first instinct was revenge. When I learned about Carmen's affair, I wanted to hate her memory. But God showed me that forgiveness isn't about what others deserve. It's about what love requires. The truth is, this true story taught me that family isn't defined by blood or perfection. It's defined by the choice to keep loving, even when it hurts. Diego may not share my DNA, but he's my son because I chose to raise him, protect him, and forgive him. That's what real fathers do. Carmen's ranch became more than just inheritance. It became a place where broken people learned to heal. These grandpa stories I'm sharing aren't just about oil money or family drama. They're about second chances, about how God can work through our mistakes to create something beautiful. The oil wells still pump on that Texas land, but the real treasure was learning that love conquers blood, forgiveness heals wounds, and true family is built on choice, not genetics. If this true story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear about forgiveness. Subscribe to hear more grandpa stories about life, love, and the lessons that matter most. Tell me in the comments, what family lesson has shaped your life the most? I went to the FedEx office to pick up a package, but the clerk handed me an encrypted drive I never ordered. He said, "Your wife asked us to deliver this exactly 3 years after her death." I froze. Adeline had been dead for 3 years. Inside was a message, "Ask the children why they lied about my death." When I discovered the truth, I realized my family had been hiding a dark secret I never could have imagined. Before we continue, hit subscribe and let me know in the comments what country you're listening from. What I discovered next changed everything I thought I knew about family. Morning Atlas. Felix Hawthorne called from behind the counter. 20 years working this route, and he knew every customer by name. "Got your daughter's package from Seattle right here." I signed the electronic pad, my 65-year-old hands not quite as steady as they used to be. 3 years since Adeline's death, and I still wasn't used to handling everything alone. "Thanks, Felix. Nova keeps sending too much coffee." Felix disappeared into the back room, then returned with a second item. A small black encrypted drive wrapped in brown paper. No return address. "Almost forgot. Your wife asked us to deliver this today specifically." The world stopped. "I'm sorry, what?" Felix pushed the device toward me with his usual smile. "Adeline dropped this off about 3 years back. Said to hold it until November 8th and give it to you personally. Today's the 8th. My keys slipped from my fingers, clattering on the floor. "Felix, Adeline has been dead for 3 years. His smile froze. "What? No, Atlas, that's impossible. She was standing right where you are talking about encryption keys and digital protocols. Very specific about the security." She died November 8th, 2021. Cancer. I was holding her hand. Felix went white. But she knew all the technical terminology. She was very much alive when she gave me this. The device sat between us like a bomb. The label showed Adeline's distinctive handwriting. Neat, precise, exactly like her mathematical research notes. I need to get home. I drove my Tesla through Fremont's tech-lined streets in a daze. Every routine landmark felt foreign now. Inside our smart home, I locked the door and sat at the computer setup Adeline and I had built together during Silicon Valley's early days. The encrypted drive required a password. I tried anniversaries, birthdays. Nothing worked. Then I remembered something Adeline used to say, the most important truths are hidden in plain sight, Atlas. I typed our home address. The drive unlocked. A single folder appeared, the truth about our family. My cursor hovered over it. Opening this would change everything. But Adeline had trusted me with whatever she'd discovered. I clicked. Inside was an audio file, Start Here My Love. Adeline's voice filled the room clear as if she were beside me. Atlas, if you're listening to this, then I am truly gone, and enough time has passed for you to handle what I need to tell you. I'm sorry for the shock this must cause. I arranged this delivery through Felix because I knew he'd remember me and confirm my identity. You needed proof this came from me. Her voice wavered slightly. On this drive is everything I discovered in the months before my death. I should have told you then, but I was trying to protect you. Now, protection requires knowledge. A pause. I could hear her taking a shaky breath. Ask the children why they lied about my death. The answer's on this drive, but prepare yourself, my love. What you find will change everything you believe about our family. Another pause longer this time. Orion and Nova did what they did to keep you safe. But in doing so, they put themselves in a position I fear they cannot escape from alone. Trust no one until you understand. Not the police, not our lawyer, not even our children. Not at first. Her voice broke slightly. You are stronger than you know, Atlas. You always have been. The encryption key for the main files is our first dance song, I Love You Forever. The recording ended. I sat in the silence of our office staring at the drive that contained secrets my dead wife had hidden from me. Secrets about our children. Secrets that had apparently gotten her killed. Because if Adeline had arranged this delivery 3 years ago and she'd mentioned the months before my death, then she'd known she was going to die. The answer to my question sat right there in front of me. A folder labeled Financial Evidence. My hands trembled as I opened it. Whatever Adeline had discovered about our family was apparently worth documenting with the precision of a federal investigation. The first audio file was dated 6 months before her death. Atlas, I need you to understand what I've found about Orion's sudden success. Her voice was steady but strained. That AI startup he told us about, the one that made him rich overnight, I ran the numbers. The company barely exists, but $89 million has moved through cryptocurrency exchanges using shell companies registered to our home address. Our address. Someone had been using our home as a front for massive financial fraud. Bank records filled my screen, statements showing systematic withdrawals from my retirement fund transfers. I'd never authorized digital signatures that looked like mine but weren't. The dates matched Orion's lifestyle changes perfectly. The house in Los Altos Hills, the expensive cars, Reina's designer, everything. An email chain made my stomach drop. From omeridianatechventures.com to Reina, meridian@gmail.com. tgrimmyadvancedtech.corp. Dad's getting suspicious about the retirement account. We need to accelerate the timeline. Reply from tgrimadvancedtech.corp. Handle your father. Reina knows what to do if he becomes a problem. Reply from ReinaMeridian@gmail.com. Don't worry about Atlas. Mom's the real threat. She's been asking too many questions. Mom's the real threat. They'd been planning this. My son, my daughter-in-law, and someone called TG, who apparently ran the whole operation, and Adeline had gotten too close to the truth. The final audio file was dated 2 weeks before her death. Adeline's voice was weaker now, frightened. I confronted Orion yesterday, showed him the evidence. He didn't deny it, just said it had gotten out of hand. But then he said something that terrified me. The TG wouldn't let him stop, now that they were in too deep. Her voice dropped to a whisper. My cancer medication tastes different lately, Atlas. The pills Orion picks up from the pharmacy for me. I'm getting sicker faster than the doctors predicted. I think someone's been tampering with them. The cancer medication. Orion had insisted on handling all her prescriptions, said it was the least he could do to help. If something happens to me, you'll know it wasn't the cancer. Protect Nova. She doesn't know anything. But Atlas, whatever you do, don't trust Orion. Our son isn't who we thought he was. The recording ended. I sat in the darkness, the weight of betrayal crushing me. The boy I'd raised, taught to code, been so proud of. He'd been systematically stealing from me while poisoning his own mother. $89 million. My retirement fund. Adeline's life. All sacrificed for whatever scheme this TG person was running. Outside car doors slammed shut. Heavy footsteps crunched across the gravel driveway, moving with purpose toward my front door. Multiple sets of footsteps. They weren't here to talk. The front door exploded inward as I grabbed the encrypted drive. 3 men in tactical gear swept into my living room. Professional. Armed. I had maybe 10 seconds before they reached the office. Adeline's warning echoed, "Trust no one until you know the truth." I shoved the drive into my jacket and bolted for the back door. My phone triggered our smart home's rear exit, just as boots thundered upstairs. "He's not here. Check the office." I slipped through the back garden, staying low behind the hedge. My Tesla was probably compromised. Instead, I sprinted toward the neighbor's fence, grateful for those morning walks with Adeline. There, moving toward Stevenson Boulevard, I vaulted the fence, landing hard in the Johnsons' yard. Their German shepherds barking covered my escape as I flagged down an Uber. 24/7 internet cafe on Pacific Commons. Drive fast. Through the rear window, 2 black SUVs tore from my driveway. They'd searched systematically, but wouldn't expect me to go deeper into the tech district. The cafe was perfect. Anonymous, crowded. I paid for a back corner station and immediately started uploading Adeline's files. Google Drive, Dropbox, iCloud, my old university server. If they wanted this evidence, they'd have to find it everywhere. "Excuse me, sir." The manager approached nervously. "Some men outside are asking about you." They showed badges. Badges. Of course, TG's operation had law enforcement credentials. "Is there a back exit?" "Through the kitchen." I was already moving. The kitchen led to a service alley connecting to Pacific Commons Shopping Center. From there, I could blend into the evening crowd of tech workers. But I needed height, perspective. The parking garage across from the Apple store rose 6 stories. From the top level, I could see the whole district. 4 SUVs, at least 12 men. They had the cafe surrounded, expanding their search grid. I was trapped. Then I noticed the security camera mounted on the northeast corner. Red recording light blinking steadily. If something happened here, there'd be evidence. These people operated in shadows. They wouldn't risk exposure. I walked directly under the camera and waited. 5 minutes later, the SUVs pulled away. My phone buzzed. Dad, are you okay? I heard about a break-in at the house." Orion. The same voice that used to call from college needing coding help. The same voice that had thanked me at his wedding. The same voice planning my death in those emails. "I'm fine, son. Just shaken up. Where did you hear about it?" "It's all over the neighborhood app. This is serious. You can't stay at the house. Come stay with Raina and me until police figure out what happened." "The police?" "Right. Probably on TG's payroll, too." "That's thoughtful. Let me grab a few things first." "No, Dad. Don't go back there. It's not safe. I'm sending a car for you right now." "What's your location?" He was trying to find me. The concerned son act was perfect, but I could hear something else underneath. Urgency. Desperation. Fear. "I'll call you back. I need to think." I ended the call and stared at the phone. My own son was hunting me. The boy I'd taught to code was using every digital tool at his disposal to track me down. But he'd forgotten something important about his old man. I'd been writing algorithms since before he was born. Time to remind him who taught him everything he knew. My son's voice sounded concerned, but I had learned not to trust anyone. 20 minutes later, I sat across from Orion at Blue Bottle Coffee in Palo Alto. The cafe buzzed with venture capitalists and startup founders providing perfect cover. But I had to be careful. Well, one wrong word could put me in immediate danger. "Dad, you look terrible." "Are you hurt?" Orion reached across the table, concern etched on his face. I remembered that expression from his childhood. The same worried look when he'd broken something and blamed Nova. "I'm fine, just shaken up." I kept my voice steady. "The police said it was probably random. Burglars looking for electronics. That's what I heard on the neighborhood app." He leaned forward. "But Dad, you can't stay at the house alone. It's not safe." Interesting. How had he known I wasn't staying at the house? I hadn't mentioned leaving. "You're probably right. I was thinking of getting a hotel room for a few days." "No need for that. Come stay with Raina and me. We have plenty of space." The same house bought with my stolen retirement money. That's generous, but I don't want to impose. Besides, I should probably stay close to home in case the police need anything. Orion's eyes flickered with something. Frustration. What could they possibly need? It was just a break-in. Well, they asked about Mom's old research files. Apparently, the burglars spent a lot of time in the office. I watched his reaction carefully. Strangest thing, they seemed to know exactly where to look. His coffee cup rattled slightly against the saucer. Mom's research. Why would burglars care about mathematical theorems? That's what I wondered. Unless... I paused as if a thought just occurred to me. Unless someone told them those files contained something valuable. Dad, you're being paranoid. Am I, because the police mentioned something interesting? They said this kind of targeted search usually means inside information. I kept my tone conversational, concerned father seeking advice from successful son. Orion shifted in his chair. Inside information from who? Someone who knew the house layout, knew where Mom kept her important documents. I sipped my coffee casually. Someone who had access. Dad, you're scaring yourself. Why don't we go back to my place? Raina's making dinner. He was trying to get me isolated, away from public spaces. Actually, I should probably check on Nova first. Make sure she knows what happened. I pulled out my phone. I'll call her now. No. Orion's hand shot across the table, stopping me. I mean, she's probably at work. Time difference and all. Maybe wait until tonight. Why wouldn't he want me calling Nova? That's when I noticed his other hand. He'd been texting someone under the table. His thumb moved frantically across the screen. You know what, son? You're right. I am being paranoid. I stood up slowly. Thanks for the coffee. I think I'll head to that hotel after all. Which hotel? I should know where you're staying. I'll figure it out. Probably something near the airport. As I walked toward the exit, I caught Orion's reflection in the window. He was still texting, his face tight with concentration. I'd almost reached my car when I heard her voice. Hello, Atlas. Raina stood beside a black Mercedes, her smile cold as Silicon Valley fog. She was dressed in expensive business attire, every inch the successful tech executive. We need to talk. Raina's smile was ice cold as she approached, clearly in control. I was hoping we could avoid this conversation, Atlas. But Orion tells me you've been asking uncomfortable questions. I glanced back at the cafe. My son was inside phone, pressed to his ear, watching us with the expression of someone in over his head. Questions about my retirement money, about my wife's death. Those seem reasonable. Your wife's death was unfortunate but necessary. Her voice carried no emotion. Adeline was brilliant, but she couldn't leave well enough alone. The casual admission hit like a physical blow. This woman had sat at my dinner table, called me dad, and murdered my wife. You killed her? I solved a problem. Adeline discovered our operation 6 months before her cancer diagnosis. The cancer just gave us convenient cover. And Orion, your son is ambitious, greedy, weak, but he's not a killer. That required actual vision. She gestured toward her Mercedes. Get in. We're discussing terms at my office. What terms? You have Adeline's evidence files. I want them back. And if I refuse... Raina showed me a photo that froze my blood. Nova bound and gagged in what looked like a warehouse. Your daughter is very pretty. Tragic if something happened to her. They had Nova, my innocent daughter who'd never hurt anyone. The files Atlas, all of them, including your cloud backups. She knew about the uploads. Fine, but Nova goes free first. That's not how this works. Get in. We drove to Orion's startup office in the industrial district. State-of-the-art smart building. One I'd helped design 2 years ago when I thought my son was legitimate. Impressive setup, I said as we entered. Orion could afford it with your retirement fund. 3rd floor, open concept office glass and steel cryptocurrency displays on every wall. Sit. Raina pointed to a chair. Orion emerged from a side office looking sick. Dad, I never wanted... Shut up. Raina's voice cut like a blade. Your father is transferring Adeline's files to our servers. She pulled up a workstation. I need your cloud passwords, all of them. But I was studying the room's smart systems, the same network I'd helped design. My phone connected automatically. I still had administrative access. You know Raina, Orion really spared no expense on this place. I triggered the fire suppression system. Halon gas flooded the room. Emergency lighting activated, elevators locked down. What did you do? Raina spun around, eyes wide. Emergency protocols. In 30 seconds, this floor seals and ventilation shuts down. Orion ran for the stairs. Smart. He remembered the schematics. Raina lunged at me, something metallic flashing. I dove behind a server rack as the room's communications went dark. My override had cut their network phones everything. You think this changes anything? I still have your daughter. I reach the server room, fingers flying across the emergency console. All building systems controlled from here, including external communications. Cut their communications, their whole operation falls apart. My phone buzzed, one call getting through. Dad, Nova's voice, terrified. Dad, help me, they have me. The line died, but I'd heard something in the background. Something that told me exactly where they were keeping her. I had to find help, but Adeline's warning echoed trust no one. But hiding in that server room, I remembered something else from her recordings. There are still good cops, Atlas. Find Detective Sage Hunter. 20 minutes later, I sat in a secure room at the FBI field office. The background noise from Nova's call had been crucial. The distinctive Bay Bridge foghorn. They were holding her near the waterfront. Mr. Meridian, we've been hoping you'd contact us. Detective Hunter had sharp eyes and the steady presence of someone you'd want in a crisis. You know about Raina. We've been investigating Thaddeus Grimm for 3 years. Agent Cypher Kane spread files across the table. Your son's startup is just one piece of a larger operation. Grimm runs Advanced Tech Corporation, Hunter explained. Surface-level legitimate venture capital. Underneath money laundering using Silicon Valley startups as fronts. Your son's company was perfect, young, desperate for funding. And Raina Castellano, her real name. Grimm's top lieutenant specializes in compromising targets. She's been working your family for 5 years. 5 years, since before she met Orion. Detective Ravencross feeds them information from inside, Kane continued. Every time we got close, she'd tip them off. So you can't trust your own people. We can't trust Cross, but we've been building a parallel case. Hunter leaned forward. Are you willing to help us end this? They have my daughter. We know where. Kane pulled up satellite imagery. Grimm owns a warehouse complex near Pier 33. Tech equipment storage officially. Sensitive operations unofficially. The building looked like a fortress. Raina will want an exchange. Your evidence for Nova's life. We can use that. You want me to walk into a trap. A trap we control, but we need inside information, building layouts, security systems. I thought about the integrated systems I'd designed throughout Silicon Valley. I can help with that? Good. Because we have another problem. Hunter's expression darkened. They're moving operations tonight. If we don't act in the next few hours, Grimm's entire network disappears. What about Nova? If they're running, they won't leave witnesses. Ice water in my veins. My daughter wasn't just kidnapped. She was on borrowed time. What do you need? Everything about their technology, security, psychology. Raina thinks she's smarter than everyone. That's her weakness. And Grimm. He trusts Raina completely. Doesn't know she's been skimming from the operation building her own nest egg. Hunter checked his watch. 2 hours before they start moving assets. If we're saving Nova and taking down this network, it's tonight. Then let's go. Orion's house looked peaceful from the outside, but I knew it was a fortress. The Los Altos Hills mansion sat behind electronic gates, every inch the Silicon Valley success story. State-of-the-art security AI systems, motion sensors that could detect movement at 50 yards. But I'd helped design some of those systems. Remember, we go in quiet, Agent Kane whispered through my earpiece. FBI tactical is positioned, but we need Nova safe first. I studied the building from across the street. 2 years ago, Orion had asked for my security advice. I'd been so proud thinking my son wanted his old man's expertise. Now I realized he'd been planning betrayal even then. There, I pointed to the north wall. Blind spot in camera coverage. Motion sensors have a 3-second delay on that angle. We moved quickly, staying low. My 65-year-old knees protested, but adrenaline carried me forward. Nova was inside, terrified and alone. The external cameras were easy. I still had backdoor codes from my consulting work. A few keystrokes, and the security system showed empty lawn. The laser grid in the main hallway was new but predictable. I'd taught Orion about security redundancy. He'd learned too well. We crawled under the beams, following paths I'd mapped from memory. The house hummed with servers and climate control. Nova's voice came from below us, faint but unmistakable. Dad, are you there? The basement server room. Most secure location surrounded by electronic countermeasures. I found the hidden access panel behind the kitchen pantry. Another feature I'd suggested. Stairs led to a high-tech bunker. Nova sat tied to a chair, tears streaming, but her eyes lit up when she saw me. Dad, I'm here, sweetheart. I cut her restraints, pulling my daughter into a fierce hug. Dad, I heard them talking. Orion's been planning this for years. Grimm promised him everything. Money, power, new identity if they had to run. It's okay, we're getting you out. Not so fast. Orion stood in the doorway, unrecognizable. Cold eyes calculating expression. A pistol in his right hand. I really hoped it wouldn't come to this, Dad. Orion, please. She's your sister. Sister. We're not even real family anymore, Dad. Blood doesn't mean anything when you've been living a lie your whole life. He stepped forward, gun steady. You both know too much now. I raised you better than this. You raised me to be weak, to follow rules, care about feelings. Grim taught me what really matters. Power control, taking what you want. His voice turned bitter. You know what's funny, Grim's been more of a father to me than you ever were. He saw my potential when you just saw disappointment. The words hit like physical blows, but they gave me an idea. You're right, son. Grim taught you well. My phone was still connected to the house systems. While Orion gloated, I triggered automated lockdown. Steel shutters slammed over windows. The door sealed electromagnetically. Emergency lighting bathed everything red. What did you do? Orion spun panic, replacing confidence. Activated your own security against you. Something Grim never taught. Always know your environment better than your enemy. The gun wavered. This doesn't change. Agent Kane moved like lightning, disarming Orion before he could finish. My son collapsed to his knees, finally looking like the scared boy I remembered. It's over, Orion. No. Barely a whisper. Grim will never let this end. He'll kill all of us before letting his operation fall apart. Heavy footsteps echoed above us. Multiple sets moving with military precision. Game over, Atlas. Thaddeus Grimm's voice carried through the intercom, cold and amused. I'm afraid my young protege is right. This is far from over. Thaddeus Grimm walked into the room like he owned the place. Because he did. The man behind everything stepped through the sealed doorway, as if electromagnetic locks were merely suggestions. Tall, silver-haired, wearing a perfectly tailored suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. He moved with the confidence of someone who'd never faced real consequences for his actions. Until tonight. Atlas Meridian, the famous software architect. Grimm's voice carried the smooth polish of a man accustomed to boardrooms and power lunches. I've been looking forward to meeting you properly. The feeling isn't mutual. Oh, but it should be. You see, this has all been about you from the very beginning. Grimm gestured around the high-tech bunker. 10 years of careful planning. Your company, your innovations, your brilliant mind. I needed all of it. So you decided to steal it. And I decided to acquire it through the most efficient means available. Your son made an excellent inside man once we found the right leverage. Orion flinched at the words, still kneeling where Kane had left him. Reyna was even more useful, Grimm continued. Beautiful, intelligent, completely without conscience. The perfect handler for a weak-willed mark like Orion. And my wife? Grimm's expression didn't change. Adeline was brilliant, but inconvenient. She discovered our operation 6 months before her cancer diagnosis. We simply accelerated her timeline. The casual admission of murder hung in the air like poison gas. You're insane. I'm practical. Your wife's death served multiple purposes. It eliminated a threat, provided cover for our activities, and left you emotionally vulnerable. We could have continued indefinitely if she hadn't been so thorough in her documentation. Heavy footsteps echoed from the stairway above, multiple sets moving fast. That would be Detective Cross. Grimm smiled. Come to arrest you for industrial espionage and murder. Such a tragic end to a brilliant career. But the voice that called down wasn't Detective Cross. FBI building is surrounded. Detective Hunter's voice amplified through a megaphone. Grimm's confidence flickered for the first time. Impossible. Cross assured me. Cross has been under surveillance for 6 months. Agent Kane said, rising from behind the server rack. Every conversation, every payment, every order you gave her. We have it all. The sound of tactical teams moving through the house above us was unmistakable now. Grimm's perfectly orchestrated plan was collapsing in real time. Orion, tell them. Grimm's voice turned desperate. Tell them your father forced you into this. Tell them he was the mastermind. But my son just stared at the floor, broken. I can't do this anymore. Orion's voice was barely a whisper. I can't lie anymore. Dad, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. Pathetic! Reyna's voice cut through the emotional moment like a blade. She'd been silent until now, calculating her options. You were always weak, Orion. Grimm should have known better than to trust a mama's boy. She moved toward the emergency exit I'd forgotten about, a maintenance tunnel that connected to the neighboring property. Agent Kane was faster. going somewhere Ms. Castellano. The takedown was swift and professional. Raina hit the floor hard, her designer outfit finally showing some wear. Thaddeus Grimm, you're under arrest for conspiracy, money laundering, and murder. Detective Hunter appeared at the top of the stairs, weapon drawn, but controlled. Atlas Nova, are you both all right? We're fine. I managed, still holding my daughter close. As they led Grimm away in handcuffs, he looked back at me one last time. You think this is over? There are others. Bigger operations. You've won a battle, not the war. Maybe, but I've won the only battle that matters to me. The next few hours passed in a blur of statements, evidence collection, and medical checks. The FBI had been building their case for years, and tonight's operation had given them everything they needed. Orion was taken into custody, but Hunter assured me that his cooperation would be considered during sentencing. Raina showed no remorse, already demanding lawyers and making threats about what she'd reveal if they didn't cut her a deal. As the house finally emptied of law enforcement, I found myself alone in Orion's office. That's when I noticed it. A small envelope tucked behind his computer monitor, marked with Adeline's handwriting. For Atlas, when it's over. Inside was a single sheet of paper. My darling husband, if you're reading this, then you've done what I knew you could do. You've saved our family. You've found the strength I always saw in you, but you never saw in yourself. I love you forever, and I'm so proud of the man you've become. Take care of Nova. Take care of yourself. And remember, love transcends everything, even death. Adeline. I sat in that empty office and cried for the first time since her funeral. But these weren't tears of grief anymore. They were tears of gratitude. 6 months later, I stood in federal court as Grimm received his sentence. Life imprisonment without parole. Judge Martinez's voice carried absolute finality. The man who'd murdered my wife and corrupted my son finally faced justice. Raina got 25 years, showing no remorse even in shackles. Orion received 15 years reduced for cooperation. When they read his sentence, he looked at me across the courtroom, frightened, ashamed, but finally honest. I nodded to him. Not forgiveness yet, but a beginning. The $89 million recovered went back to defrauded investors. I donated my portion to a foundation educating seniors about financial fraud and cybersecurity. If Adeline's death was going to mean something, it had to protect other families. Nova moved back to California, taking a cybersecurity job in San Francisco. We had dinner every Sunday now, sharing stories about her mother, rebuilding trust that Orion's betrayal had damaged. Do you think Mom knew what was going to happen? Nova asked one evening. I thought about Adeline's final message, her careful arrangements to protect us even after death. Your mother understood that love isn't just emotion. It's choosing someone else's well-being above your own every single day. I started teaching cybersecurity at the local senior center. Every Tuesday and Thursday, helping people my age navigate the digital dangers that had nearly destroyed us. It was Adeline's work, using knowledge to protect the vulnerable. Sundays after dinner, I'd visit Adeline's grave in the hills above Fremont. The simple headstone read, Beloved Wife, Mother, and Truth Seeker. Thank you for trusting me with the truth, I'd tell her. Thank you for believing I was stronger than I knew. From the cemetery, you could see the tech companies below, places where dreams were born and sometimes corrupted. But you could also see neighborhoods where families lived, children played, people like us built lives worth protecting. I'd learned that family isn't about blood. It's about people who stand by you when everything falls apart, who trust you with secrets, who believe in your strength when you don't. Detective Hunter and Agent Kane became friends. Monthly coffee meetings sharing stories about justice served. They'd shown me there were still good people fighting for what's right. Technology should serve humanity, not destroy it. That lesson I passed to students, to Nova, to anyone who'd listen. Our tools should strengthen families and protect communities, not tear them apart for profit. Sitting in my apartment that evening, looking at Adeline's photo, I realized something profound. She wasn't really gone. Her love, wisdom, and fierce protection lived on in every choice I made, every person I helped, every moment I chose truth over convenience. The encrypted drive sat in my desk drawer. Now its secrets revealed purpose, fulfilled. But Adeline's real inheritance wasn't digital evidence. It was knowledge that love transcends everything, even death itself. And sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the chance to discover their own strength. The cemetery overlooked Silicon Valley's gleaming towers, but from up there you could see what really mattered. The homes where families gathered, the schools where children learned. The communities where people chose to care for each other despite the risks. Adeline had taught me that truth isn't just about facts and evidence. It's about the courage to act on what you know is right, even when it costs everything. Looking back on this true story, I realize how blind I was to the signs right in front of me. Don't be like me. Don't ignore your instincts when something feels wrong about the people closest to you. I trusted too easily, loved too blindly. When Orion started flashing money and expensive cars, I should have asked harder questions. When Raina seemed too perfect, too eager to please, I should have been suspicious. But like many grandpa stories teach us, sometimes we learn wisdom only through pain. God has a way of revealing truth when we're ready to handle it, even when that truth shatters everything we believed about our family. I spent 3 years grieving Adeline's death, never knowing she'd been murdered by our own son's greed. The Lord works in mysterious ways. He used my wife's love from beyond the grave to save what remained of our family. This true story taught me that technology can be both blessing and curse. The same encrypted drive that revealed my son's betrayal also contained my wife's final act of love. Don't be like me. Don't wait until tragedy strikes to truly see the people around you. If you're hearing this among other grandpa stories about family betrayal and redemption, remember, blood doesn't guarantee loyalty, but love transcends even death itself. God gave me strength I didn't know I possessed when I needed it most. The hardest lesson. Sometimes protecting your family means fighting against your own children. I pray to God that none of you ever face such a choice. But if you do remember, truth is always worth the cost, no matter how much it hurts. This true story changed me forever. At 65, I learned that being a grandfather means more than just loving your family. It means having the courage to hold them accountable when they lose their way. Don't be like me. Don't let blind love make you an accomplice to evil, even when that evil wears the face of someone you raised. What would you have done in my situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, please share it with others who might need to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful grandpa stories that remind us what really matters in life.